end systems are connected to the network infrastructure. And so if those are not patched at the right version level and they are not consistent, then those could be backdoors into your network infrastructure. Remember, security is only as strong as your weakest link. And the hacker is very good at finding those weak links. And in a lot of environments, they've done a very good job with the perimeter defense, but are really struggling with these systems, these PCs that have to be supported by an understaffed IT department typically inside these organizations. And the third being web applications. You're hearing about physicians' portals, nurses' portals, patient portals. We want more and more information electronically. And that's another port that is now available for them to attack. And depending on the capabilities of that application, so again, you've got a situation of both insider and outsider attacks, which is the reason why in the HIPAA security rule, right at the very top, they've got sanctions policy to take care of the situation with respect to disgruntled employees or other vulnerabilities that might exist with the workforce inside. And outsider attacks, because the outside, as John had mentioned and the other speakers had mentioned, they are more knowledgeable, more professional, and much better funded than they've been before. So the question that you always ask, and if for those of you that are the information security officers in this room, is how confident are you about your organization's security posture? I think that's a very important question to ask. And more, the one thing that does get me, very few things in life get me excited anymore, but the one thing that does get me excited, especially in this last quarter, is we are beginning to hear from our clients that the audit committee and the board of directors is now asking questions: are we HIPAA compliant? Are we compliant with PCI? Or are there other things we need to be compliant with? And why is it that we've not achieved that compliance status? So very important to understand your organization's information security posture. Wireless challenges are very significant. And I think if there's one thing that we can take away from my presentation, is that this is the area of highest degree of vulnerability and is the easiest to attack and penetrate. Generally, the problems exist on three fronts. The authentication mechanisms that are used are very weak, if anything at all. Encryption is not a significant challenge. It could be broken into relatively easily. And we've done a very good job in the healthcare industry with wired networks, but relatively poorer job of the wireless infrastructure in managing it. So anytime, and I can, at least my experience in '07, has been that anytime we do a penetration testing that includes wireless within the scope of it, I've yet to do one this year, and we do these every week, where you don't discover rogue access points. And rogue access points are the nerve center. Access points are the nerve center for wireless infrastructure, and you should not be discovering rogue access points, those that were not authorized to be deployed. But typically, you're going to find those on your infrastructure. So that is a challenge, something, and that's the world that we are moving into, a world without wires, a world that's mobile. That's the future in '08 and '09. So we got to make sure that we put the appropriate security muscles on that front. And the other place that surprises me, and I can always kind of like to look ahead 12, 24, 36 months, is that when I was growing up in India and the doctor would visit us, I always had this picture with the doctor with the stethoscope, taking and trying to get the vitals and all of that information. But to me, in America, and as we look ahead, the stethoscope of the physician that provides very critical information to patients and impacts the capability of services we can deliver at the point of care is that IT data center. That IT data center has a tremendous database of information about that patient, much more than that stethoscope can provide. And we are, in general, not doing a very good job of, one, managing that IT data center, and two, God forbid, if something were to happen to that IT data center, there is no backup. We may have backup tapes, but we do not have an alternate data center strategy to recover from a destruction of the primary data center. And in the HIPAA security rule, contingency plan is a standard that, for the most part, most organizations are not fully meeting today. So again, need to take a look at, have you completed a business impact analysis? When I looked at that Piedmont list, a lot of the questions that those guys were asking, list of applications, list of servers, list of connections to the internet where ePHI may be processed, all of that should come out of your business impact analysis. So the two activities that all organizations should be conducting on a regular schedule, we'd recommend best practice at least every 12 months, would be conduct a risk analysis with penetration testing. And number two is complete your business impact analysis, because any organization that does not complete a business impact analysis cannot be compliant with the contingency plan standard of the HIPAA security rule. So you got to do that, and you got to be looking at what's your alternate data center. Are you going to own it? Are you going to outsource it? Is it going to be a hybrid, SunGuard, EMC, whatever? Those are some of the things that you need to be looking at. In general, and this slide kind of is the state of technology in healthcare in 2007 as we go into 2008. It's overwhelming the IT staff. Go to hospitals. I've been to hospitals that are 100 beds all the way up to 2,000, 2,500 beds, and the problem is very consistent. We are seeing too many servers, typically hundreds of servers, hundreds of applications, and what I've not put on this slide, hundreds of interfaces that make this whole thing work. And so that's hundreds of items that we have to recover to meet the requirements of the contingency plan standard, and then you've got thousands of end devices that have their own operating systems that have to be supported. The mobility of devices is increasing. Typically today, a hospital that is 400 beds is generating data between 10 to 20 terabytes of information. So when you're looking at the incrementals that are done on a daily basis or the full backup that's done on a weekly basis, that's a lot of information that is being generated about patients that are walking in to the hospital door. What is our strategy for real-time, near-time, long-term storage? A lot of organizations haven't documented that, haven't gone through those discussions, debates, and determinations what's going to be their position on that front. Highly specialized technical skills. One of the other areas I feel like we're falling behind, and my recommendation very strongly, is you need at least 1, if not 2 weeks. If you're an IT professional in information technology, you need at least 2 weeks of training education every year just to keep up with all the changes that are happening, and the typical healthcare technology professional is not getting it. So every day we are falling behind, and what that means is that we are missing out on the specialized technical security skills that we need to protect the infrastructure, and a very serious lack of redundancy. I think for many of you are here from many different parts of the organization. I always feel my job as a presenter is not to be in sync, but to throw the things out there that I see from my experience, and then see if that resonates, that connects with what you see back in your own environment, some of the changes that you might need to make. But there's a very serious lack of redundancy. Now, you know, what the Piedmont Hospital teaches me, and I pray that we've got some people from CMS and HHS over here, is to a large extent that they are irrelevant. Because by the time CMS gets its act together and publishes the information on Piedmont Hospital, and we try to learn from that experience, and by the time Piedmont Hospital people start talking, we will be very focused in trying to meet compliance requirements of other regulations that we are under pressure. So, for example, the Department of Veterans Affairs, they've got to meet the requirements of HIPAA, but they also have to meet the requirements of FISMA. Now, if I am a person in the VA, and I look at, like John had mentioned, a tiger with no teeth, and we ain't seen any bite as yet, where do you think I'm going to allocate my federal dollars for compliance? I was at a hospital just last week in the Midwest, and they've got to be in compliance with the PCI, Payment Card Industries Data Security Standard, by August of next year. So that's where they are now debating what are we going to be using as the framework for compliance activities. We heard about Sarbanes-Oxley. I forget if it was the last speaker or the one before that. But when I think of Sarbanes-Oxley, that's about internal controls over what? Over financial reporting systems. When I think about PCI, it's about protecting what? It's about protecting that credit card account information. When I think about HIPAA, it's about protecting that EPHI, electronic protected health information. In all these cases, I just generalize it. If I'm the security officer, I'd say, you know what? I got to protect sensitive information that's flowing inside my organization. That's my job. I got to protect that. I can draw upon Sarbanes-Oxley to guide me on internal controls. If it's financial reports, I can draw upon PCI and its 12 requirements to guide me in terms of credit card information, and I can draw upon HIPAA's administrative, physical, technical requirements to guide me on EPHI activities. But those are the things that need to come out from your security strategy, and I think we're going to start to